Hello, Mr. Burgess. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm great myself, but let's get this interview going. So, Anthony, when were you born? Where are you from? Some background?
I was born February 25th, 1917 in Manchester, England. I grew up during the Great Depression in a suburb of Manchester called Harperhay. My family was very religious, with my mother being a Catholic convert. I was born with the name John Burgess Wilson, but after my confirmation it became John Anthony Burgess Wilson.
Well, that's interesting. So, why did you choose just Anthony Burgess as your pen name?
I mostly chose Anthony Burgess as my name to write under because John Anthony Burgess Wilson is quite a mouthful for an author.
All right. How about you tell us about your book, A Clockwork Orange? What is it about?
A Clockwork Orange is a novel that I wrote in 1962 where the main character, Alex, is in a gang called the Droogs with 3 other guys. Georgie is the second eager leader of the group, Dim is the group's muscle, and Pete just follows along with the group. They go around committing very violent acts, whether it be beating old men, assaulting young women, or even drugging young children. The group gets fed up with Alex's leadership and frame him for a crime that they all committed. He ends up in jail, where he is chosen to endure experiments where they try to reprogram his brain to not thinking that the acts are violent or not wanting to do those acts by making him feel discomfort or nauseous when he sees them. The experiments ended up working and he was released into the public, where he was tormented by one of his old victims, where he drove to kill himself by jumping out of the window. His attempt failed and he ended up in the hospital, where he is told that he will be freed after he is healed if he tells them that the experiments cured him. He realizes that the fall reverted his brain back to its old ways, where he is violent again, and with a sly smile, he says that he was cured.
Wow, what a great twist ending. What genre were you aiming for your book to fall under?
The genre I was aiming for was a dystopian society, where it's kind of the opposite of utopian society, where ideal and perfect, but instead it's terrible and horrible, and kind of an anti-perfect world or future.
So currently there are 20 chapters in A Clockwork Orange. Can you tell me about the omitted 21st chapter?
Well, in my original version of A Clockwork Orange, there were 21 chapters where in the end, after getting released from the hospital, Alex goes back to wreaking havoc with a new group of Droogs until he runs into Pete from the old group by a chance meeting, where he sees that Pete has moved on and has a family and is happily married, and he sees the error of his ways and decides that he wants that kind of future for himself. But when I took this to the American authors and the editors, they said that the Americans wouldn't go for a happy ending, they'd rather have a dark and twisted ending. So I decided to have the 21st chapter omitted.
What voice or narration takes place in the story?
The narration is a first-person narration done by the main character Alex in his point of view, so he is taking you through the story in his point of view and through his mind.
What was your inspiration for writing this book?
My inspiration was probably 2 things. When I lived in England, there was a group of drunk American servicemen who beat my wife, and she ended up having a miscarriage. And the other thing was, when I had gotten back from a trip to England, I saw how much that England had changed, with bars and clubs and gang fights happening all over, and it inspired me to write a book that shows how society is becoming.
In this book, Alex and the other Droogs often speak in another language called Nadsat. What is this about?
This language is kind of made up of part Russian slang mixed with made-up words where the group can communicate with each other without being understood or spied on by outsiders not in the group.
This book was beginning to be banned from schools and libraries for controversial content, but this only started to happen after the movie adaptation came out. Why do you think that is?
Well, personally, I do not agree with the way that the book was portrayed in the movie. For instance, Steven Kubrick's version of A Clockwork Orange portrays it as kind of glorifying violence and sex, whereas that was not the intent of the book.
Did you have any other careers?
Yes, I was a critic, a composer, a poet, a novelist, and even a broadcaster.
Wow, a very busy man and successful. What college did you attend? What was your alma mater?
I attended Victoria University of Manchester, England, so I stayed pretty close to home, never really left.
What was your literary movement?
My literary movement was modernism, which that means a modern idea or a modern character or practice, which I feel was kind of embodied in A Clockwork Orange.
Besides the dystopian society in A Clockwork Orange, what other genres did you write under?
I wrote under historical fiction, satires, spy fiction, and horror because all of these topics or genres really interested me.
I see. Well, thank you so much for talking with me, but we're out of time.
Oh, thank you as well. It was my pleasure.